Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Reddit Aliens. I'm John, and as always, thank you so much for being here. A good topic, at times divisive. Let's do it. What genuinely terrifies you? Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Being buried alive. Even the idea scares the ever-living crap out of me. I can't stand having my face covered, and any depiction in the movies or TV shows make me uncomfortable. There it is. You people and my wife are the only ones that know, so no one tells, okay? Getting stuck in a tight spot like a cave or vent and dying of dehydration or starvation. I couldn't imagine the regret I'd feel while stuck in that position, especially with no one to speak to. Also, catacombs. Similar reason, but being lost instead of stuck. Locked-in syndrome. The idea that you can be lying there listening to doctors tell your loved ones that you're brain dead, fully conscious, and struggling to tell them that you're still in there, completely aware. My dad had early onset Alzheimer's, and it terrifies me. He was a smart man, but couldn't understand what was happening. The day he was diagnosed and told it was Al's, he turned to me and said, "Why won't anyone tell me what's wrong?" So I held his hand, and the professor told him again, and he just shook his head and said again, "No one will tell me." Truly horrifying disease. The thought of living a long life. I'm disabled, have terrible chronic pain, and I'm only going to get worse the older I get. I don't want to live to be 100 and suffer all the time. I just want to be around with my spouse until things get too hard, and then peacefully pass on my terms. Medical negligence, doctors, nurses, surgeons, they're all just humans at the end of the day. Human error is inevitable. It terrifies me to think how many lives have been lost due to honest mistakes made by healthcare professionals. And I say this with so much respect for healthcare workers. It's just terrifying to think about. Alzheimer's or dementia. I'm terrified of the way they slowly take away everything that makes you you. I've watched family members go through it, and it's heartbreaking. I'm currently living it. I'm watching my spouse decline with age. He will pass before I will. In the meantime, I'll be making him as comfortable as he can be. As I'm typing this, I'm waiting for him to finish scans in the ER to determine as if he has a bone infection, a possible blood clot, and if his foot will need to be amputated. The split second of realization just before you incur a significant injury during any physical activity. It's horrible. It unfolds and there's nothing you can do to stop it. In a moment it goes from things are going great to, oh God, I know what is about to happen, to complete resignation to fate. During the recovery process, it's then time for personal reflection. What's coming? As a woman who cannot have children, I do wonder what worth I hold in the coming new world. Do I hold any value? Yeah, I know it sounds silly or crazy, but I have had an actual family member who are supposed to love me say women who cannot have kids hold no value. It seems they always forget that demographic includes me. They think pretty terrible things about single women in general and have made comments that I need someone, as in a man, in charge of me. And since I don't have one, a few have actually tried telling me how to live my life. But the thought that someone could have one day control my autonomy does terrify me. Being alone, and not in the, oh, sucks that I'm single alone, but my mom is dying, my husband is dying, he's a lot older, and my son is growing up, starting his life and moving away. Sure, you can make friends, but realistically, all the friends I've ever seen to make are just acquaintance level and are never really going to care about me. It's loneliness I'm dreading. Jail, prison, adult protection services, group homes, nursing homes, assisted living, memory care, Lewy body dementia, Parkinson's, Huntington's disease, getting another neuro thing. For me, it's the opposite of the devil, you know. Brain damage stinks. I don't want to be diagnosed with anything on top of what I was born with neurologically. Being trafficked, living so close to Mexico. Going to jail because of my schizophrenia, doing something awful in psychosis, losing the med to control my oncologic crisis, or the sky-high dementia rate among people with schizophrenia. Oh, also homelessness because my disability is so low and no one's doing anything about rent prices. Trump. More specifically, all the people, from loved ones to strangers, who filled in the box and voted for him again. Some of them again and again. It makes me think that we as a country have failed. It makes me scared for our race. It makes me sad and scared for my fractured relationship with the people that raised me. And I'm in the minority. People that think like me are in the minority. 100 years from now, when the history is written, though I will be deemed unimportant individually, the collective people who thought and think like me will be considered weak and ultimately ineffectual. And it stinks, man. It really, really stinks. It sucks for the hurt my country is going to inflict on itself and for our planet. I know this is a hot button topic, so I'm not going to dwell too much on it, but your fear is yours, so I'm not going to argue about it, but a lot of it is also based on a lot of assumption. So I don't know what to say, except that I hope things go well and that this fear over time alleviates. But to just go into something with a negative approach based on beliefs, could also hamstring you in an effort to move forward in a good way. So good luck to everyone, and I hope it works out no matter what you believe and fear and don't like. Karma, I guess, or a messed up version of it that only lives in my head. In my early 20s, I made a lot of mistakes. I can attempt to justify it by saying I was reacting to traumatized with the truly abysmal coping skills I had been given. But the truth is, I hurt people. I didn't mean to, not always at least. It was always more about hurting myself. I ran with rougher and rougher crowds, delved deeper into addiction, and was just generally incredibly reckless with my own life, and by extension, those close to me. I don't know why I survived not one but 2 separate gnarly car crashes when I was driving under the influence. No one else got hurt, but they most certainly could have. These days, I've got a great life. I'm sober, I work out, and take good care of my body. I have a fiancé who is the most grounded, patient, and wise person I've ever known. I've got 2 beautiful young kids, a decent job that maybe I don't love, but it's adjacent to my passion and will take care of me well past retirement if I'm smart. But what if the universe comes knocking one day? And what if instead of taking me from personally, it takes what I love away? My kids, my partner, the home we built. That's what keeps me awake sometimes. Stories of brainwashing and cults make me feel very uneasy. It's nice to think there's something wrong with the people who get sucked into beliefs and groups that seem bizarre, but then we are all somewhat brainwashed and probably more susceptible than we think we are. And the thought train that follows is just unpleasant and scary. Being alone by myself out in the middle of nowhere where there's nobody around me. Whether it be alone in the middle of a forest, a valley, a desert, or anywhere else. Being alone with nobody around just terrifies me. If I were to get hurt or something else were to happen to me, nobody is going to hear my cries for help as I'll be miles away from them. Plus, if I'm alone in the middle of the forest, my imagination will go wild, and I'll think that someone or something is stalking me. Close your eyes. Imagine when you open them, you can't breathe because you're now underwater, submerged in a pitch-black, endless void with unknown fish lurking in your vicinity. You can't see them, but for some reason, you just know they're there. Maybe you faintly see 12 glowing eyes and dozens of teeth in the distance closing in on you, or 30 tentacles about to pull you apart. As bad as it sounds, the future. My fiancé and I already aren't legally allowed to live together unless one of us gets a visa and then residency. We're also both bi, which isn't something we even want to mention if anyone asks, seeing how right-wing everything is getting. All I ever dreamt about was buying a house and starting a family, but I can't do any of that, and I don't even know if I want to raise my children in a neo-Nazi world that melts away because climate change apparently doesn't exist. I feel like we're headed toward one of those sci-fi movie scenes where the majority, poor, live in the dumps, and the 1% have built a city in the sky. There's just so much hate. It's actually terrifying. Losing the house I'm renting. It's a good-sized house, and it belonged to a friend of the family. The rent is more than half compared to another private rented property. There's an option for us to buy it when we're able, but that option seems to get more of an impossibility every month as trying to save money these days becomes harder and harder. The owners are getting on a bit, and even though they don't need to do anything to maintain the property, as I do, that is part of an agreement to get cheap rent, and they don't have a mortgage on it. I'm worried they will want to sell up quickly one day, or it gets passed on to their son, who I don't really know, as he moved away years ago, and he may have other plans for it other than renting it to us. We don't have anywhere near the money to get a mortgage, and even though my parents said they would help whenever they could, it seems like we could lose our home and end up somewhere expensive and nowhere near the space that a family of four needs. I don't owe any money, but don't have much at all in the way of savings. I got out of debt in 2019, and since then, with all that's happened with the economy, I'm no better off financially. It's mad. Losing my husband. He got COVID back in 22, and it hit him really hard. We almost took him to the hospital because he was in so much pain. He described it as being stabbed through his chest or lung. It hurt to breathe, he hurt to move. I was so scared. He brought up today his other lung feeling a little bit of the same way, but it's a dull, stabbing feeling. I'm scared to ever lose him. He's my rock. He's the first person to love me for me. I wouldn't be where I am today without him. I've never loved somebody the way I love him. I'm terrified of him dying. Getting old. I have no kids and never will, by choice. And an only child, so no nieces or nephews by blood. I was a very late baby, so the age gap between me and my cousins is quite large enough. I've never been close with any of them, since I was always the baby of the family. If my husband dies before I do, I'll be stuck here, old and alone, and God only knows where I'll end up. My only hope is my nieces, husband's nieces, might step up to the plate, as I'm very close with them now, but nobody knows the future. They are 9 and 12 now. Who knows what type of women they will grow up to be, you know? It's terrifying to think I could end up old and senile in an old folks' home with nobody around to advocate for me. The fact that humanity is deteriorating every day. I'm morbidly worried for my child's future. Water scarcity, climate change, loss of nutrients in the soil, deliberate and almost invasive adulteration in the food that we eat, mindless wars, socioeconomic pseudo-wars, the world being governed by the stupid and the rich, honesty simply going out of fashion, everyone but the working class living and breathing just to exploit the working class, the absolute disregard to science, arts, civics, language, culture, morality, and spirituality. The very purpose of existence completely obscured by the mindless preoccupation with absolutely fleeting things, e.g. social media, which is a means to paralyze human thinking and morality at a massive scale and with utmost efficiency, and so on. I'm scared beyond wits. What if the food supply chain crashes? What if the fossil fuels get disrupted? What if there's no one interested in doing actual work outside of computers? What if AI can do all kinds of stuff so that there are billions of people laid off who all their lives only knew to work on computers? I can't imagine us to last one day amidst these fragile systems we have built and the most advanced species on the planet.